Woohoo! And I'm Deb Acker. I'm an intuitive life coach, and I clear energy blocks to all areas of life, including love and abundance. And today, as part of as you guys know, I'm starting a group program called the Live Your Truth Pattern Breaking Program. Woohoo! And as part of that, we are going to be talking today about the pattern of being critical. And this can be self-criticism, and it can be being critical towards others. And I want to bring awareness to two ways that this pattern shows up for anyone that's ever shown up this way in their life, which I pretty much don't know anyone that at least on some level at some point in their life has had, that negative inner self-talk. So that, the negative self-criticism, and then obviously like there's criticism. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that I actually had, when I was a bit younger, I was really critical. And I want to share the story with you around that. So basically, when I was growing up, a lot of my family model was all around criticism equaled love. Okay. And at the time, of course, I was not aware that that was really the way that my family showed love. But it was very, very, very common for, I always think of my grandma when I think of this, and she's beautiful. She's crossed over now, but she's a beautiful being. But one of the things she would always say to me when I would go to her house, and I would come over, and I love being in workout clothes. Like, that is my favorite thing to wear. And so I wanted to come over to her house and be in my workout clothes, and just kind of have maybe come from working out, big surprise, which may be why I'm wearing my workout clothes. She would say to me, she's like, oh, have you combed your hair? Or she would ask me a question like that, right? And that was for her one of the ways that she really showed love. And so I want you just to tune in right now and ask yourself, do you show love by being critical? Being critical to your partner, by being critical to coworkers, and think to yourself, what model of this, if at all, if this existed in your childhood, what did this look like in your childhood? Who showed their love to you this way? If, like I said, if that applies to you. Because it's really, really important. If I think about when I was younger and dating, I'm not old, but when I was younger and dating, I remember a specific moment with this one person I had been dating. I think we ended up dating for about 6 months, but I was dating him. And I remember coming over to my house one time, and I was really super critical of him. And I remember, in that moment, I didn't realize that was such an ingrained way that I had learned to show up at that point, that I didn't realize that that was even, it was abnormal. I didn't realize the impact of what I was saying to this person and how that might land in somebody. And so, whatever it was that I said, I don't remember exactly what I said. I remember the energy of it, and really, I didn't internalize it at the time, but now looking back, I could see how hurt he was by what I had said. And what ended up happening, actually, was we had been dating for a short period of time at that point, and he ended up, I think he didn't call me all week. I think I just didn't hear from him. And unfortunately, so many of our patterns is we don't know how to communicate when something hurts us, right? And that's part of, why I created this Live Your Truth pattern breaking program, right? So you can clear what's, your patterns so that you can move into your authentic truth. And then you can also learn how to speak your truth, right? Because speaking our truth is such an important piece of living in truth, right? Especially, I know for years I struggled with, how do I communicate my truth when it may not be agreeable to somebody else, right? When it could hurt them, or even deeper though, it was just they may not like me, right? And and people pleasing is another pattern we're going to cover in the program. But, and so for years I struggled with that. And actually today, I'll share a story with you. Today I had to share with somebody, and I didn't go that deep with it because I just had to feel into the situation and feel into what felt right in that moment. But I had to share with someone there, basically, um, in essence, it was sort of like they were testing my boundaries, right? And I kept being very agreeable because she was doing something nice for me. And the more agreeable that I was, the more I was getting taken advantage of. And so finally today I had to communicate to her something that I previously had agreed to. I had to say, I can't do this. And, and it wasn't from a place of anger or anything. It was just from a place of like, this is my truth, and I'm going to focus in and be centered around love when I say this, but I'm just going to say, like, this is, I can't do this right now. I'm going to actually set a boundary. And it'll be interesting to see how she responds to that, right? Because many of us, through speaking our truth, have a pattern of we haven't yet, through years of not speaking our truth, I should say, we've blocked ourselves from being able to have our truth received by somebody. And so that's something, especially too, I want to clear when we're in the program, because it's so important. If you think about, if you have this pattern of this belief that, okay, my truth won't be received, I won't be able to, I'll speak it, and that's great, and that's like the first step, but then it won't be received, you're going to block yourself from maybe potentially having the relationships that you want to have, right? Because if we look at how many times, if you don't speak truth, and say, for instance, like something keeps happening, right? So it happens over and over and over again, and you get more and more frustrated, but you keep holding it in, right? Because you have this pattern that, you don't know how to speak it, your truth won't be received. And then you look at the impact on what the impact of that is on a long-term relationship. That can be really, really, detrimental to a relationship, right? Because you're just holding that inside. And of course, too, if you're holding it inside, your body's not going to feel good. But then also looking at the impact of like, okay, then that's impacting my relationship, and maybe it's shutting me off from having something that I really want to have in my life, right? And so again, it's we'll go back to critical. I know I was talking about critical, and we got into speaking your truth, but again, really looking at, I know so many times we think, oh, our patterns, like that's not really impacting my life that much, or it's not really having an impact on the things that I really want. But if you look at the impact of not speaking your truth, how is that impacting your relationships? How is that impacting your love relationships, where maybe you're not attracting the person that you want to attract, or you're not able to sustain that relationship because of, for that example, for instance, or even it's like if you're in a work relationship, right, and you can't communicate your truth because you think it won't be received, and then you're holding that in, and you're in that work environment every day, for 5 days a week, for at least 8 hours a day, and just looking at how that impacts you, right? And so, and how that impacts, your work and your career, and even, if you're holding that in, whether that person is in tune with it or not, again, they might feel some resentment, and that might impact your ability to get a promotion, that might impact your ability to get a raise. And so just really, really noticing all of those pieces. And so back to the initial pattern I started with, which was really all around criticism, and really our like criticism. So one place it shows up is in love, right? And criticism being equal to how somebody loves you and how you love yourself, and you might have that internal inner voice from that being modeled, like, okay, this is how I love myself, I criticize, right? If you had a parent that was critical of themselves or critical of you, you definitely, I'm sure, internalize that voice. And that's one thing when we do this program, we're really going to clear that and shift that. Like, I can tell you, like, and of course, there's no such thing as perfection or anything, but I can tell you, like, I don't at all beat up on myself the way that I did before I started this work, right? The way that I did before I started shifting and clearing, my patterns. Like, I can't even, I have so much love and compassion for myself. And I mean, it's, you have to do the deep work, I was talking about this, on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, but like so many coaches out there talk about, oh, happiness, the ever elusive happiness. And the thing is like, while we might not think that, it may not feel like that in our human selves, we did come here to have the whole range of emotions, right? Because there is a beauty in all of those range of emotions. There is beauty in all of those feelings, and we came here to have that whole experience. And if it's the shift from that's good and that's bad to it's all good, and really, really starting to really open to that as a possibility, because everything, whether you like it or not, everything is helping us to grow as individuals. Everything is helping us to grow as souls. Everything is helping us to go deeper. Everything is helping us to love ourselves more, to love others more, for deeper connection. And so as a coach, that's one of my core values, right? I say this work raises your happiness baseline because it just does. I've seen it over and over and over again in my clients where, there's so many coaches out there. It's like, I'm going to give you a mindset thing, and that's going to, then you have to kind of work to try to maintain that, right? And try to really internalize that. And I always say, and I love saying, it's like, the mind can change it and the feeling will change it. But the work that I do is meant to have you be in the feeling of that, so it's authentic for you. So you're not actually having to force yourself to change your mind or force yourself to keep focusing on it. That it all of a sudden, all the energy that's being held around the belief that's blocking you from really being in where you want to be, you can just take the energy off of that, and all of a sudden you shift your experience without having to force or keep recentering on a thought or keep rethinking it over and over and over again. And that's one of the things I love doing the most. It's one of the ways I love helping people the most. And so back to the the pattern of criticism. So criticism and love is one way, and then criticism and criticism is a way for us to stay safe, right? Because, like, say for instance, and this, it goes back a little bit to perfectionism, but say for instance you're thinking about putting yourself out there in some way, and you go into the pattern of like, well, it's not good enough where I am. It's not good enough what I'm doing. You might say, okay, well, I'll do it later. I'll do it another time, or you might just make the conclusion, I won't do it at all. So whatever that is for you, noticing that, and notice, where does being critical and that criticism, where does that keep you safe, right? Where is that helping you to play small in your life, and really, really tuning into that piece. And so, and just paying attention to it and starting to open to it, because, the more that you can lean in, and like I said, again, this is something we're going to clear in the program. So the program, we're going to clear this pattern, and so you don't have to keep thinking about it. But, if you're like right now in this moment, start to tune in. It's like, okay, where am I letting my self-judgment, my self-criticism, my, criticism of others keep me small? Because if you can think about, like, even if you criticize someone else, maybe in a work environment, that might, again, block you from that promotion. It might block you from having something you want in your life, right? And, there's so many patterns out there that seem small when you look at them, and then they're really having a major impact on our ability to have everything that we want to have in this life, everything that we're meant to have, everything that we are worthy and deserving of. And even, like with the worthiness pattern, and really noticing, like, okay, what do I think I'm worthy of? And what am I accepting versus what I truly desire? And are those two things congruent? And so I'll leave you with that. I also want to just invite you. I did a challenge this past week and a half or so. It was a little bit longer because I took a little break over a weekend. But I did a challenge all about sharing your work, sharing your heart and showing your work. And and I'm going to share one of the videos if you're on my email list, I'm going to share that video. It's all about my story, and a piece of my story where when I was in high school and not fitting in, and my mom getting diagnosed with cancer when I was 14. And so I'm going to share that in my community, but I invite you to head on over to my public page, which you can just obviously click on my name and find that. And if I get a chance, I'll bring it over into this community as well. But I invite you to do that. And then today was the last day, and I really talked about what I learned from doing this challenge. And what I was talking about, and a huge reason why I personally did the challenge, was all around visibility, right? And my ability, my worth to take up space in this world. And I know that a lot of people have that pattern, right? They don't feel worthy to take up actual space. And I talk about what I learned. And there's two questions in there that if you have a deeper call in this world, if you felt invisible, if you haven't been putting yourself out there, if you've been hiding, it's day 10 of the video, and it's today. I just did it about within the last half hour to hour. I highly, highly recommend you go over and check out that video. Those two questions for me is a complete reframe of how I look at how I'm putting out my work and how I've been hiding, and my stronger desire to be seen even bigger, seen even more, to put my work out there in the world to make the impact that I know that I'm meant to make. And if you felt called to make your own version of that impact, I highly recommend you go check it out. And so thanks so much for watching. Much love to all of you, sending you lots and lots of love. I put the link, a bit link, or bit link, I guess it's called, to the program in the subject line. So check that out. This program is going to be beyond amazing. It's going to be so awesome. I'm so freaking excited about it. And so, anyway, sending you much love. And until tomorrow, have a wonderful evening.